So you have a quote that says women are incapable of leadership. So in your debate with Kevin, you say this, and that you basically cite as an example that there's almost no female CEOs. Like say like 8% of Fortune 500 companies are female, right? CEOs are female. So do you still agree with the statement?
And the statement is that women don't make good leaders.
Women aren't capable of leadership.
Women aren't capable of leadership. You know what? I'll adjust that a little bit.
Okay.
I think women are capable of leadership in the right environment. For example, women are capable of leadership with regards to leading the children. The man is the head of the household, the wife is in charge of the kids, the man is in charge of the wife and the kids. But as far as being female leaders, listen, are women capable of leadership? Yeah, sure they are. Most of them don't make very good leaders. And the reason for that, there are some women that do make good leaders outside of the home, but the biological answer is that women are never chemically identical from one day to the next. Their bodies are constantly preparing themselves to give life, to give birth. And because of that, their chemical makeup it's never the same from one day to the next. And so they could be feeling some type of way one day, then feeling another way the next day. The fact of the matter is that now this doesn't mean that they can't have the presence of mind to say, okay, I'm a little bit emotional, but maybe I need to take a step back. But this is why if women made better leaders than men, then most women would be leaders. Does this mean that women are less than men? No, of course not. I think that men and women are not the same. But that doesn't mean that we don't contribute equally to society. I know a lot of guys like to say, oh, women are useless. No, women are not useless. They're very useful. However, when they are in the woman's role, that's when they excel. Unfortunately for women, they really try to take on leadership roles. They try to lead people. They try to lead corporations. There are some women who are capable of leading people. That is both men and women. But by and large, women do not make as good they don't make as good a leaders as men.
Okay, so I want to clarify. So are you changing your statement now to say women are incapable of business leadership or leadership when it comes to a company, or do you not actually believe that anymore?
I'm going to try to make this as plain as possible.
Yeah, please do.
Men are better leaders than women, all across the board. There are some women that are better leaders than some men, but those are few and far between. As far as in businesses, listen, again, if you have a female who knows her stuff and she can lead people, then great. But it's my opinion that men simply make better leaders than women. This doesn't mean that women are incapable of leading, because they are. I mean, we can look around us and see that there are some fairly capable female leaders. But the way it goes, if women were better leaders than men, then there would be more females in those leadership roles outside of the home. So that's
okay. Yeah. So let me kind of address this. So this is kind of this is something fairly common that not only you do, but I see a lot of people in the red pill community do in other communities. It's called the Maud and Bailey fallacy. So basically, what that means is when you make an extreme claim, like for example, I say all red pillars are massive liars, but then when that claim is being challenged, you kind of back down and retreat to a claim that pretty much everyone can agree to. So, for example, I say, hey, Donovan, all red pillars are massive liars. And you say, well, dude, like, come on, like, what about this and this? I'm like, well, Donovan, there are some lying in the red pill community. Now, that's a statement that we can both agree with, right? This is kind of what I see. So, like, for example, with this, you're saying, in the initial thing, you say women are incapable of leadership, right? But then kind of when challenged on that, you kind of go back to like, well, on average, men make better leaders than women, which is something that I agree with you on, right?
Sure.
But that's a different claim. Do you see where I'm going with that?
Yeah, I see where you're going, and you actually said it yesterday. A lot of times we make statements for effect. Women are incapable of leadership. We always say, here's another thing we like to say: all women are like that. No, not all women are like that. Most women operate the same way within the construct of the sexual marketplace, but not every single woman acts like most modern women. So when I say something like women are incapable of leadership, I didn't say all women are incapable of leadership. I guess what I should have said is that men are far more capable of leadership than women. So when it comes down to between men and women, you have to pick men to lead. There's a saying that there's something that I said a while back. Requirements of my pilot, my pilot, my dentist, my attorney and my surgeon. These are the requirements I have for them. They got to have gray hair and a Y chromosome.
Mhm. Yeah, so kind of to, I don't want to harp on this too much, but the reason I see that statement as somewhat problematic, and I'm not saying that like you're doing this on purpose or anything like that, I'm just explaining the statement, is because it's a sweeping generalization. So let's say, for argument's sake, that we replace the word women with a race. Like we say something like African Americans are incapable of leadership. Now, you and I would probably both agree that's a fucked up thing to say, right?
Well, but when there's a difference between race and gender, right? An African American man and let's just say a white man, they're capable of the same things because they both have a Y chromosome. Anatomically, genetically, they're, I don't want to say the same, but they're capable of the same things. They both have the same strength and this and that and the third. But when you're comparing, you can't compare race to gender because there are major differences between men and women. Even men of the same race. Like I have more in common with white men than I do with black women. That's just genetically. All I share with black women is my skin tone, but I share with you, a white man, my entire genetic code. The only difference is that my skin tone is darker than yours. So when it comes down to that, and I understand where you're coming from as far as, like, if we say black people aren't capable of leadership, then that's that. I mean, I agree. That's another discussion. But you can't compare gender to race. I don't think. I mean, you can come up with a better example, but we can't compare. Well, if we say this about black people, and I'll also say this too. I'll never forget. I was this was a job I had a while ago, and I'm addressing your sweeping generalization question. I remember I had just taken a trip to Boston, and I said, "Man, it's just like they say, people in Boston are rude." And there's this one girl at my job who was like, "Well, I think you're generalizing." And I said, "Well, what are you talking about?" "Well, not every single person in Boston is rude." So, okay, so what am I supposed to say to get the point across? Just say most people in Boston are rude. Nobody talks like that. Everybody talks in sweeping generalization. And then when you get together and talk about it, it's a little bit more nuanced. So when we go back to the women are incapable of leadership, women are clearly capable of leadership. I think that's obvious. I don't think I'm breaking news here. But my position is that men make better leaders than women. Maybe it was just a bad choice of words, but women are capable of leadership, but they're not as capable of men. I'll just put it to you that way.
On average, sure. And I would agree with you on that. But I think sweeping generalizations, how, I guess, problematic they are depends on the context of the situation, right? So if I make a sweeping generalization and say, like, all your parties are fucking awesome, right? Like, you have a lot of parties, right? That's not a bad sweeping generalization. But however, when the sweeping generalization is something that, encourages a form of prejudice, right? Like, I'm not saying you're prejudicial. I want to make that distinction. I'm saying the statement is women are incapable of leadership. Now, you're saying that to you, it's obvious that that's not what you really meant. The problem is, to the average person, not just watching your channel, watching my channel, they take a lot of the stuff we say literally, right? So they almost like worship us. So they say, "Oh, Donovan said women are incapable of leadership." Right, and that's how they perceive it, and that can become problematic, right? Because they are under that assumption that women aren't capable of leadership. Now, saying that men on average make better leaders than women, that's something that I think pretty much everyone will agree with you on, and that's something that science would back up. But that's different than women aren't capable of leadership. So
listen, I'm 100% board. I'm 100% on board with that.